Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to make 4 easy Valentine's Day cookies. Start with a cool down blank cookie. You'll use your detail consistency royal icing to create an outline around the area that you're going to flood. A flood is a watered down icing consistency that you use to make a smooth background for your cookie. Because it's so fluid, sometimes it can run off the sides of the cookie, so it's helpful to make a wall with a less fluid icing. So for that we use the detail consistency, which is a little bit thicker. Now you can take your flood consistency icing and just fill your cookie on the inside of your outline. Try not to add too much at first. It is easier to add to it rather than take it away. If you add too much, it could roll off the cookie and then you might have to start over. If you do need to start over, no shame. Just before it hardens, take a knife and scrape off what you've done and you can still salvage that cookie. I'm just using circular motions to push the icing into place as close to the edge as I can, but not over my little detail consistency wall. I should point out that the pointy thing that I'm using to move my icing around to the edges is called a scribe. They are pretty cheap. I picked mine up on Amazon for about 10 bucks. We're going to use a wet on wet method to create pretty little polka dots on our heart. So normally you let cookie layers dry before adding another layer, but for this we want the polka dots to lay flush. So we'll add a pink flood consistency on top of the white flood layer as soon as we're done putting down the flood layer. And after a couple seconds, the pink polka dots are going to settle into the white background, so the cookie will dry completely flush. When you're done, just let it dry in front of a fan. Yay, we made a pretty cookie! Okay, so for this next one, I'm going to teach you how to make some super simple gold Valentine's Day cookies. You already know the method for flooding cookies. Right now I'm adding the outer wall in a detail consistency royal icing, and then I'm flooding it with a color that is kind of close to gold so that when I paint a gold on later, if I miss a spot, you won't really see anything show through. We won't be using a wet on wet method for these cookies, so once you have your flood layer on, you want to dry it in front of a fan until it's dry. Now that the icing's dry, I'm going to add my gold. I put a high proof alcohol in a watercolor brush and mix that with the edible gold. It'll form a sort of paint consistency, and after I paint it onto my cookie, the alcohol evaporates, just leaving the gold pigment on the top of the cookie. This gold is Super Gold by Truly Made Plastic. It's a company that sells cookie supplies like piping bags and cookie cutters. I always make sure that I keep some of this gold in my kitchen at all times, because it's so easy, it's so pretty. Who doesn't like a gold cookie, right? The next cookie that I'm going to show you is even easier and still has gold. So, like you've seen before, we're adding our outer wall of detail consistency, and then we're going to flood that in. Flood, 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 flood. Blend to the side. You're also going to want to let this flood layer dry as well in front of a fan. Once it's dry, we're going to combine our high proof alcohol and edible gold again. And this time, instead of painting it on, you just flick it on. I really like doing these gold flecked cookies because they are super simple and they always look really good. There you go. Pretty shiny cookie. Okay, so this next one actually ended up being one of my favorites from the set. It's going to be a stamp, like for a little love note. I'm doing a black flood, obviously. but I'm going to make it cuter with little white polka dots. So this is the wet on wet consistency, like what I showed you in the first cookie, the polka dot cookie. We're just adding them on top. And because we didn't wait for the black to dry, the white is going to settle in and it'll still create a smooth surface with no bumps. Now I'm going to add my little ruffles on there with a detail consistency. And fill with a slightly thicker white flood. I did let my black flood area dry completely before adding the white ruffles. Because the black has more dye in it, it is likely to color bleed into the white if I don't let it completely dry first. If you do get a color bleed, you might be able to hide that with some strategically placed lines or details in another layer. So I'm adding a heart on top that I will paint gold, but right now I'm adding the goldish color icing first, and then I'll let that dry before adding the gold and high proof alcohol mixture. I really like the look of outlines on pretty much everything, so I added black outlines to the stamp part, and I'll add some white outlines to the ruffles just to make them stand out a bit. Every little bit of extra detail you can add does add oomph to the cookie. So now that our heart is dry, I am adding the gold mixture on top, but you're basically old pros at this point, so you know what's going on. All right, we finished. And that's all today. I hope you give it a go yourself. Thanks for watching, guys.